Hello to everyone around the globe. This is Dr. Bilal Qadir from National Textile University, Pakistan, and I am your host for this session. And in this session, let me introduce Professor Andreas Kaplan, who is a very famous personality and prestigious keynote speaker in Infor OBE Global Virtual Summit 2022. Professor Kaplan is a world authority in artificial intelligence and social media, and he is currently has the dean's position of ESCP Business School, Paris. And he has very good citations, more than 40,000 citations on Google Scholar, and he belongs to world's most cited and impactful scientists. Kaplan has taught in top-tier universities and very good history in the relevant fields. He regularly acts as a keynote speaker and presenter and academic and non-academic conferences, seminars, and workshops. And his work is featured in various national and international press and media outlets. At most keynote events, California Management Review Committee, Financial Times, Harvard Business Review, Tribune, and many others. Professor Kaplan did his habilitation at the Sorbonne and his PhD at the University of Poland, HEC Paris. He holds an MBA from the Institut National du Service Public, formerly ENA, and MSc from ESCP Business School. And today he will be our keynote speaker. And now I want to hand over our mic and this session to the Professor Andreas Kaplan. Professor Andreas Kaplan, please start your session, please.
Well, thank you very much for these kind words. Thank you also for the invitation to this conference. I feel very honored. And I'm going to start with my presentation, which is about business schools, digital transformation and disruption, as the title indicates. However, most of what I'm going to say counts for higher education in general. So we could also retitle the session in higher education's digital transformation and disruption at the example of business schools. My background is from business schools. I'm coming from a business school, so obviously I'm more familiar with that, but it counts for higher education in general. What do I want to talk about? Well, first of all, I want to give you a couple of examples of the new competitive environment we are facing as higher education sector. And then I'm going to give you two of several possibilities how to survive and how to even thrive in this new environment characterized by more and more competition. Yeah, so I'm going to start with the competitive landscape. And before I get into that, I always have one question, which I ask to my students in the beginning of the semester, but also to, well, when I do consultancy for business schools or for other higher education institutions. What do you think? Why do your students actually come to your institution? Why do they attend a business school? And obviously we all, the academics, we all would hope for that they say, well, to get a good and very good academic education and to learn something. However, in my experience, might be regional adapted, but in my experience, most of the students, they immediately say, well, we're going to university, to business school, because we want to get a good job. Rarely they talk about they want to get a good education. They talk about jobs, they talk about degrees, about community, rarely so about education and academic content. So this to keep in mind, because it's important when we look at the competition. So as my first example for this new kind of competitive players, entering the landscape, I want to talk about the Power MBA, which is essentially a Spanish startup, which only was created in 2017 with the aim to revolutionize the MBA market. They have an MBA program, online MBA program, which they sell for $999. It's non-accredited, so it's not an official degree. It's not accredited by the international accreditation bodies. It's just, but it's good content. And essentially, they just replicate what a couple of years before that, well, Laurie Pickard actually did herself. Laurie Pickard is the perfect MBA candidate. She wanted to do an MBA, but looking at the major brands like Wharton, like Harvard, like London Business School, she thought it's too expensive. I don't want to spend 100,000 euros or $100,000. So essentially what she decided to do is to participate in MOOCs, massive open online courses from all the good brands around the world, which cost her like a couple of $100, a couple of thousand, not even dollars. And she could pick the best courses from the best institutions in the most adapted fields. Like, for example, the marketing course she would take from Kellogg, because Kellogg Business School is very much, or a school of management, is very much famous for their marketing courses. The finance course she would take at Wharton. So essentially, she got the same credits, the same contents, but for a fraction of the cost of any of the MBA programs at these institutions. Now, the Power MBA, same concept. You get short lessons, not from the best business schools, but from executives like practitioners from Airbnb, Airbus, Netflix, Tesla, and so on. And we all know that students love getting taught by practitioners. So very famous practitioners, and the success one can see in their enrollments, because they enroll by now 2,000, not yearly, but monthly enrollments in their MBA, $1,000 MBA. Now, as I said, it's not accredited. It's not an official accredited program. It's not state accredited. It's just unofficial coursework. But it's the job market deciding if these these alternative providers, non-accredited providers, have a value. And if you look at the job markets, and I said before that this is why students mostly come to business school, attend business school, or attend higher education, they want to get a good job. And the first trends show that actually the job market is quite open to those new alternative forms of education. And this is the second example I want to show you. It's Google Career Certificates. Google was very smart because they provided these online career certificates right at the beginning of the pandemic. I think they started in March 2020, actually. And so what are these Google Career Certificates? Well, Google offers, you can learn to become a data analyst or a project manager or some other similar jobs by participating in these online trainings. Takes around 6 months of time. Cost is $40 per month, so really low. If you can't afford $40 per month, they even have more than 100,000 scholarships. So essentially, it's for free. This is not the most interesting thing about it. The most interesting thing about Google Career Certificates is that Google promises or actually considers successful participants in these certificates. So if you successfully finished, attended all the exams in this Google Career Certificate, Google will invite you to a job interview at the same level as they would invite somebody who did a 4-year college degree. So essentially, you did a 4 years bachelor, you would get invited to the job interview with Google at the same time as somebody having done a 6-month certificate with Google itself, right? And obviously, whenever you're in the interview situation, then you need to show yourself that you're better or you're the best candidate. But you get the same chance just by participating in 6 months online course, $240 approximately in comparison to probably $100,000 you would pay at a US business school for a 4 years bachelor or undergraduate program. So you see, the competition is quite tough. And if you don't want to work for Google, which is completely legit, then Google has over 150 partner companies like Best Buy, SAP, Verizon, Walmart, and so on, Bank of America. They all do the same. They would invite successful attendees of Google's career certificates for a job interview. The last example I want to give here is LinkedIn Learning. Again, a big tech alternative provider, educational provider, entering or having entered the market a couple of years ago. Also, I think LinkedIn is in itself, it's a big competition for business schools, but LinkedIn, with LinkedIn Learning having more than 20,000 courses on Stack, it's getting quite dangerous. LinkedIn already has become, for at least a decade, probably the biggest competition to any alumni association of a business school. Because essentially, if you want to keep up with your network, you're in LinkedIn, that's updated. So this is already something. LinkedIn has a lot of data, a lot of big data. They know exactly what kind of jobs are on offer. They know what the qualifications of the candidates are. They can propose to those potential employees some courses from their own LinkedIn Learning platform, so that they get even better or more linked to whatever the job market is looking for. So LinkedIn knows a lot, an awful lot, and they can really best provide companies with these potential candidates. So in the future, just imagine if a company, first of all, like Google, they train their own employees. And maybe if they look for some other employees, potential staff, they would go to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn would match them with the best employees available on the LinkedIn platform. At some point, you're looking for the business school. So what can a business school or the business school sector do? And these are just two examples. There are several solutions, but the two examples. First of all, it's about branding, and I'm telling that always my let's say consulting clients, especially in business schools, but higher education in general. What is your differentiation? What's your positioning? And then they would probably say, well, we're positioned on societal impact, we're positioned on sustainability, but all the business schools around the world by now are positioned on sustainability. So it's nothing special anymore. And the problem is that when you have those cheaper online providers, but also within the business schools themselves, and I'm going to get to that in a second, competition is so big that you need to convince potential candidates why they should integrate your specific institution. So you need some real differentiation. And we all know business schools are a very generic product. They all offer the same courses. They all promote large networks with alumni all around the world. They're quite similar, but they need to differentiate. And if we talk about differentiation to those new entrants from EdTech, Big Tech, here on this slide, there is a couple of examples how you can position or how you can differentiate, or what you could say in order to show your differences with EdTech, Big Tech. Well, you're creators of knowledge. You develop the latest research. You have a clear societal, non-commercial purpose. Usually, academic institution, traditional, very good brands have a non-commercial purpose, which is a huge advantage to tell your students or potential students, because you can say, well, with us, it's not about just making profits, it's about for you getting a good education. It's a very strong argument. Professors are experts, often on a world-class level. Professors are specialists in designing programs and curricula. So all these are examples of how you can position yourself and justify maybe higher tuition fees, longer program duration. Pricing, and this is also something which changed rapidly over the period of the pandemic. Before the pandemic, most players, most traditional business schools, they tried to keep the same prices for their online programs than for the offline edition of the same program, because actually they didn't want to cannibalize the offline version with their online versions. Now, the big players, some of the big players, among others, that's why I put Princeton here, Princeton University. During the pandemic, they reduced pricing of tuition for their online programs, but really significantly, drastically. Why? Because they wanted to get competitive with those other online providers who, as I showed, you provide programs for $500, $1,000, $240. I mean, you cannot be competitive if you offer a program for $50 or $60 or $70,000. So quite hard, but obviously you need to differentiate. And this is also a way where business schools and higher education in general needs to advance a lot, because for the offline versions of the programs, you need in the future, I think, to provide a lot more surrounding and linked to services like excursions, company visits, dinners, networking events, everything that is around and which is very difficult to organize online. This is why if you do an offline program, you are ready to pay higher fees, you're ready to have longer program durations. Essentially, you need to provide an experience which you only get offline and you cannot provide online. And obviously, it's not only to be competitive against these new providers, EdTech, Big Tech, but also within the business school sector itself. Suddenly, business schools which were not in the direct competitors' consideration set suddenly become very strong competitors, digitally speaking. Like, you know, if you're a business school in Europe, usually the US schools, obviously they are competition, but they're not real competition, because usually students decide, okay, I want to do a business school in Europe, or I want to do a business school in the US. So, you know, there's not that much, but now it's not only about I'm going in the US or I'm going to Europe, it's about I'm going to Europe or I'm maybe participating in an online program from a US university. So it's getting closer competition. There's only going to be one best university or business school in the world. Right now, there's lots of best business schools in individual countries. There's the BIS Business School, obviously, in India. There's one in France. In the future, with the digitalization, there's going to be one best business school. So you cannot keep on this positioning of the best. And then you need to go beyond advertising and communication. It's not only about I'm different because I'm communicating differently. It's you need to be different on all the various dimensions. Just very quickly, also here, when business schools, my clients in consultancy ask me, okay, or tell me where we're positioned on sustainability. I only ask them, well, what do you offer? What kind of food options do you have in your cafeteria? Do you still serve beef? Yes, well, then you're not sustainable, and your positioning is not on sustainability, because you cannot say we are sustainable, we're educating our students in being sustainable leaders of the future, and at the same time provide beef or any kind of meat in your cafeteria. This is one way. The second way of being competitive, staying competitive, is by community building, bonding. I'm going to be very brief on that, since time is running, but essentially the stronger the community around your business school, around your higher education institution, around university, the more loyal they will be, the stakeholders, the more they will fight for you, the more they will advocate for you. So essentially, alumni, students, professors, obviously, non-academic staff, external partners, the stronger this community, the better it is for a university, for a business school. So you need to foster community. You need to do customer retention. People are attached to other people, to buildings, to experiences. I talked about experiences, to a strong brand, clear positioning. All this helps to do community building, and this should be done in a much more strategic approach than it is done currently. And finally, I think a very good way of community building is lifelong learning. Lifelong learning, we all know lifelong learning is getting essential in the future, and it is already essential. And I always advise business schools, well, provide lifelong learning partnerships to your alumni, to your students, subscription models. Maybe just, they pay like a gym partnership, they pay a certain fee per year, they get a certain number of courses in return. You have the information about what they need. So good customer relationship management. And this is really to build these lifelong learning liaisons is really a way of building this community around and staying very strong against these new providers in higher education and the business schools more in general. And well, this is it. It's noon. Well, here it's noon, but at your, I think it's 9 o'clock. So this is what I wanted to tell. If you're interested more in these, in this subject, I wrote in 2021 an entire book on that. So this is the Higher Education at the Crossroads of Disruption. You might have a look at that. It's really talking about all what I said and much more. Again, I thank you for this opportunity to have me with you and to give this little keynote. It was an honor to me. Thank you very much.